Hello and welcome to the channel. India's cultural roots. Introduction to India's cultural roots. India's cultural roots are rich and multifaceted, with many traditions, philosophies, and belief systems contributing to the country's spiritual and intellectual heritage. These cultural roots stem from various schools of thought that developed over millennia, influencing not only the religious and philosophical landscape of India, but also its ethical and social practices. The term schools of thought is often preferred over the term religions when describing Indian belief systems such as Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism. These schools of thought represent diverse approaches to understanding life, knowledge, ethics, and spirituality. Number 2. Major schools of thought in India. Jainism. Founder Mahavir. 519 to 527 BCE. The 24th Tirthankar. Core concepts: Ahimsa, non-violence. The primary tenet in Jainism, which emphasizes non-violence not just in actions but in thoughts and speech as well. Right knowledge, right faith, right conduct form the three jewels of Jainism. Liberation. Achieving liberation from the cycle of birth and death, samsara, by overcoming the cycle of desire and attachment through self discipline and non violence. Story of Rohenia. A skilled burglar who heard Mahavira's teachings and felt remorse for his actions. He later confessed, returned stolen treasures, and became a monk. This story illustrates the idea of redemption and the power of right action and right thinking in achieving spiritual growth. Buddhism. Founder Siddhartha Gautama, Buddha, 6th to 5th century BCE. Core concepts: Four Noble Truths. Life is suffering. Dukkha. Suffering is caused by craving and desire. Tanha. Suffering can be eradicated. The Eightfold Path leads to the cessation of suffering. Ahimsa. Emphasized as part of the moral code, non-violence extends to thoughts and feelings. Nirvana. Liberation from the cycle of rebirth and suffering. Number 3. Hinduism. Core concepts: Dharma, the moral order of duty in life that guides individuals to act righteously. Karma, the belief that every action has consequences, either good or bad. Rebirth, the cycle of birth, death, and reincarnation influenced by one's actions. Karma. Moksha, liberation from the cycle of samsara, rebirth through knowledge, devotion, and right action. Hinduism, although diverse, has a shared focus on the unity of cosmic powers as reflected in Vedic hymns and texts. Charvaka, materialistic school, believed that the material world is the only reality and rejected concepts such as the afterlife and spiritual realms, denied the existence of any life after death, instead focusing solely on sensory experience and material well-being. The Charvaka school was not widely popular and eventually faded away, but it provides a contrast to the spiritual and philosophical schools that focus on metaphysical realities. Number 3. Ahimsa and its broader meaning. Ahimsa is not limited to physical non-violence but extends to mental and verbal non-violence. Negative thoughts, ill feelings, and hatred are seen as forms of violence in both Jainism and Buddhism. Practicing ahimsa requires individuals to transform negative thoughts into positive ones. And this process of self purification is central to spiritual development in both schools of thought. Number 4. Interaction between different schools of thought. Number 1. Buddhism, Jainism, and Hinduism share several core principles. Dharma, righteous duty or moral order. Karma, action and its consequences. Rebirth, the cycle of life, death, and reincarnation. Liberation, the search to end suffering and ignorance. While each school has unique teachings and practices, they share a common goal of overcoming ignorance and suffering to achieve spiritual liberation. Number 2. Folk and tribal traditions. India's cultural heritage also includes oral traditions passed down through generations without written texts. Tribal communities have their own distinct cultural practices, beliefs, and deities, and their interactions with mainstream schools of thought like Hinduism and Buddhism have enriched both cultures. Number 5. Tribal communities and their beliefs. Tribes and Janatis. In ancient India, tribes were seen as social groups, janas, who lived in close knit communities and shared common descent and culture. Modern tribes, as per the 2011 census, India has over 705 tribes with a population of over 104 million people, more than the combined populations of Australia and the UK. Tribal deities and beliefs. Tribes typically worship nature based deities, reflecting their connection to the land, mountains, rivers, trees, and animals. Examples: Doni Polo, sun and moon deity, worshipped by the tribes in Arunachal Pradesh. Singbonga, supreme deity, worshipped by the Munda and Santhal tribes. Number 6. Mutual influence between Hinduism and tribal religions. Deities and rituals. Tribal deities. Many Hindu deities were adopted from tribal belief systems such as Jagannatha, originally a tribal deity from Odisha. Mahabharata and Ramayana, tribal groups in places like the northeastern states of India and Tamil Nadu have their versions of these texts, showing the fluid exchange of beliefs between tribal and mainstream religious traditions. Higher divinity. While tribal religions often focus on the worship of nature deities, many tribes also have a higher divinity or supreme being. Doni Polo in Arunachal Pradesh, Khandova in central India. This indicates a shared belief in a cosmic force, or divine entity beyond the realm of nature. Number 6. The role of the banyan tree as a symbol. The banyan tree serves as a symbol of Indian civilization due to its deep roots, extensive branches, and its ability to support many forms of life. It represents interconnectedness, the unity of various aspects of Indian culture, and the continuity of spiritual traditions. In Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, the banyan tree is regarded as sacred, symbolizing spiritual growth and expansion. Number 8. Reflection on Indian cultural diversity. Cultural diversity. India's cultural roots encompass a wide variety of schools of thought, tribal traditions, and spiritual beliefs, all contributing to a rich and diverse cultural landscape. Mutual enrichment. As sociologist Andre Batelli observes, Hinduism and tribal religions have influenced each other throughout history, leading to a blending of rituals, beliefs, and practices which has enriched both traditions. Number 9. Conclusion. India's cultural roots are not confined to a single tradition or belief system. Instead, they represent a fusion of diverse spiritual, philosophical, and ethical practices. The interaction between tribal traditions, Vedic philosophy, Buddhism, and Jainism over millennia has created a rich tapestry of cultural practices and ideas that continue to shape India's social and religious landscape.